All right, Dustin joined me earlier this week to go over the Oscar nominations, and tonight he is joining me again for this is one that I look forward to every single year, and it's kind of crazy because if I'm not mistaken, I believe that this might be the first time that the two of us are ever going to do this again. Dustin and I have known each other for quite a long time, almost 20 years now, if I'm not mistaken, but this will be the first time ever that I'm pretty sure that we have ever done a combined shared top 10 list. I don't know about you. I'm really excited for that. I think this is going to be an awesome set of lists, to say the least.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Can't
definitely
wait.
Absolutely. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. There's going to be a lot of back and forth, interesting back and forth on this video, to say the least. All of that and more on tonight's episode of the Talkin TV podcast, capping off our January catch up. What's going on, guys? Happy to be here once again on a Sunday night. I know I said in the little pre-stream thing that I did on the YouTube shorts that I was going to watch Last of Us before this video, and then I saw that this week's episode of Last of Us was another hour and 20-minute long episode, and I was like, nope, no thanks. I will be waiting until after this episode is done in order to do that. So unfortunately, I was talking to Chris earlier this week, and Chris unfortunately voiced to me off screen that he had not seen enough movies that he felt would justify him to come onto this video. So Dustin offered to come in instead and do his top 10 for movies of 2022. And Dustin, we talked a little bit earlier this week on the Oscar stream about the last 6 years of movies and kind of how I feel like comparative to like the first like couple years of movies that we had growing up, the last 6 years have just not been that good. They just haven't held up. The movies that have been being released, the emphasis on what certain types of movies are being made is just not there. But we're always able to scrape together these lists at the end of the year. We're always able to pick out our 10 best favorites. I wanted you to go a little bit more in depth with that. You've been doing this, like I said, a lot longer than I have. So you've been doing like your top 10 list for like a lot longer than me. So break it down. Like, what is it about the rankings and the lists at the end of the year that is so captivating and fascinating for movie fans like us?
It's not that hard to understand. It's just ranking your favorite movies of the year. And the last 6 years, like you said, have been, dwindling. So, for example, like a lot of them, quite a few movies in this list for my top 10 this year aren't like a 9 out of 10. And when that happens, that's kind of concerning.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe we were talking. Yeah.
The way I grew up, like my top 10 always had like 4.5 out of 5, 9 out of 10 movies or above in them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like that started to like kind of dwindle around 2018, especially was the peak.
Yeah.
Of that starting to happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. Like I said, it is interesting because, like I said, I didn't start doing top 10 lists until a lot later. But even then, it's like even with the gap, like 2015, I remember that was like the first year I feel like I ever did a real top 10 list. And even that list compared to like some of the years that followed, like 16 and 17, I felt like I was like struggling to get some movies on there where I'm like, can I even like justify putting 10 movies on here? I especially have felt that in the last couple of years, the COVID years, and 2022, what was so interesting about it is that it was a year that for the first 8 months of the year felt so sparse and so like just empty with movies where there just weren't a lot of movies to watch that I felt like by the time we got to like August, I'm like, okay, I got my top 10. This is it. There's going to be nothing else. And just the last 4 months came out, and then there was just like this wave of movies that just came out of nowhere and just kind of overtook everything. Like if I'm remembering correctly, in August, I believe I had movies like Hustle and Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent and a couple others that I'm currently forgetting on there. And I'm just like, I mean, all those movies were good, but I'm just like bottom of the barrel, like just absolute. Oh boy, if this is who I think this is, Mike, what's going on, dude? Happy that you tuned in. And your favorite movies are Top Gun and The Fabelmans. Well, unfortunately, I can't. I can give you a little bit of a spoiler right now and say that none of those movies are on either of our lists. I believe I actually kind of went out of my way to say that Top Gun Maverick famously was in my worst of the year. I wanted to make a bigger stink about that on YouTube, like make a whole video about just like how I didn't understand the Top Gun hype at all, but I unfortunately did not have time for that. But that is something that I feel like we got a little bit out of the way on our Oscar stream earlier this week. And I was just like, I really don't get it. Like, I get why people like it. I get why people have fun with it. I get why people enjoy it. But like, best of the year, that's where I draw the line. I'm like, I don't get this. I really do not get this at all.
Top Gun saved cinema.
Top Gun saved cinema. We know nothing. You know, it single-handedly brought people back to the theaters just for that movie. And then
oh my god, look at his next comment.
Oh my god, and then it gets better. It gets better. Elvis and Avatar. I'll give you this.
Dude, you're getting lower, dude. You're getting further away.
I'll give you this. Avatar was at the bottom of my honorable mentions. Avatar was at the bottom of my honorable mentions. Elvis was in worst of the year. That's another movie where I'm like, okay, like unlike Avatar, I can sort of kind of understand why that's in a lot of people's favorites, but I'm like, no, that movie, the first 20 minutes, I almost had a stroke and almost walked out. So I don't even know how the hell I made it through that entire movie. But
Elvis was mid. I didn't hate Elvis, but like it really gets by on the strength of that lead performance by Austin Butler, who is exceptional in it. But it's not one of the best of the year. And like I said in the Oscar video, that getting in Best Picture over a certain film that we're going to talk about.
That we are going to talk about. That is definitely on your list and came very close to making mine. But I couldn't agree with you. So without further ado, let's get into it. Like I said, we got a lot of movies to talk about, to break down, and I'm very interested to hear about some of your selections because your selections are always awesome, always interesting. Black Phone and Barbarian. Okay, we're getting closer. We're getting closer.
Getting closer.
We're almost there.
I was just about to say that.
We are this close to being there. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, Dustin, you want to start or me?
Can I do my honorable mention?
Yeah. Do your honorable mention. Sure.
I would like to do my numbers 20 through 11 real quick. Okay. 20, Banshees of Inisherin. 19, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. 18, Tar. 17, Apollo 10.5, A Space Age Childhood. 16, Barbarian.
Yes.
15, Nitram. This little scene Australian film starring Caleb Landry Jones, and he's exceptional in it. 14 was Emergency, the Waldo Salt Screenwriting Award winner from Sundance that I saw in virtual Sundance, which was really good. White Noise comes in at number 13, the Noah Baumbach Netflix insane movie that I really dug. 12, Weird, the Al Yankovic story, and this is why this year is lame, because that is my number 12 of the year, but it's very good. It's very solid and nice, but in any other great year, this would be like in my 30s, I think. 11, The Black Phone, probably the most underrated and underappreciated horror film of the year, and Scott Derrickson's perhaps his best film, and I really fucking liked it a lot.
Nice. Yeah. So if we're going to run through my honorable mentions then real quick, I put these all out in TikTok form, but I'll run this off for the YouTube crowd in case anyone has missed it. I will do 25 through 11 because I had a lot of movies in there that I also wanted to include in honorable mentions. So for me, honorable mentions: 25, Ambulance; 24, Avatar: The Way of Water; 23, After Yang; 22, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever; 21, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent; 20, Hustle; 19, Cha-Cha Real Smooth; 18, The Whale; 17, Fresh; 16, Babylon; 15, Bodies, 14, X; 13, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish; 12, Barbarian; and 11, The Batman. I'm not going to lie. This year, 10 and 9 for me were tough. It was the toughest that I had ever done. I was between 3 movies, one of which I was having a hard time with, one of which I was pretty convinced was locked in, and one I'm like, I really want to put this in, but I'm not sure. And then I rewatched a couple of movies leading up to it, and I'm like, okay, my decision has officially been made. Like I said, these are. I feel like we shouldn't need to preface this because the fact that people feel the need to preface this on YouTube, I feel like it's just showing the breaking down exactly of like why we do this. But like these are our lists. We don't really care about anyone else's thoughts or opinions. These are our lists. These are our favorite movies. All that good shit. So without further ado. What about Best Actor? You are the GOAT, guys. Love your opinion. Love The Whale and The Batman. We're awesome. What's it called?
What about Best Actor?
Yeah, are you talking Oscars? Or are you talking like what our favorite performances of the year? Because I feel like those are two different.
We're gonna get into that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So without further ado, Dustin, kick us off, man. What is your number 10?
My number 10 is actually a foreign film,
Ooh.
and it comes from Argentina. It's called Official Competition.
So wait, it's not called Argentina 1985? One of the most
No,
unsubtle titles for a movie I've ever seen?
no. It's this little known or little seen satire starring Penelope Cruz and Antonio Banderas. And it's about a director played by Penelope Cruz who gets recruited by these rich business assholes to make this pretentious art film with two of the biggest stars in Argentina, I believe. And those are played by Oliver Martinez and Antonio Banderas. And it's such a rich, nice satire. It's really dark, it's really cynical, but it's also like subtly realistic. And I think Penelope Cruz perhaps gives the best performance I've seen her give in her career as this really neurotic and eccentric director. And who's not without her own flaws, but Antonio Banderas as this really vain and really talented, but like really subtly sociopathic actor who's like this big blockbuster actor, and then Oliver Martinez plays the more renowned like stage and indie film actor. And I just thought it was a really biting and cutting satire, and I really appreciated it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember I vaguely remember seeing a poster for this at what was this at Sundance though, the one year when it was there. Was this Sundance this past year, or Sundance 2021 when this came out? Um I don't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, this movie is available to stream currently on AMC Plus. So I would definitely recommend going and watching it there, because if Dustin's putting it on his top 10, that means it is definitely worth watching. I will say this was a pretty good year for satire. Or the satires that we got, I should say, that were really good, that really hit, I think really did their mark well. I got a couple of them on my list here. But overall, I think if I could say like one thing about my list, it's that I really just wanted to get back to having fun with movies. You know, it's that so many movies are just so heavy and so weighty. And like a lot of the movies that like I felt made like a really like big impact on me, that just made me go, whoa. A lot of those movies just like really weren't there this year. So this was kind of the year where I just kind of chilled back, sat back, enjoyed myself, and had fun. And that's why at the end of the day, it really was. It was between this and Batman for number 10. And I rewatched Batman and I'm like, I really enjoyed it. But the Batman 2022 just did not hit me the way that the Bale movies did. It was incredible for what it was, but my number 10 is Bullet Train. It's just the movie that I had the most amount of fun with. This is the movie that I had the most amount of fun with all year. I saw it twice when it came out in theaters. It is a movie that is pitched, that is pretty much exactly what it is pitched. It is a Tarantino-esque joke-a-minute like heist, caper, assassin action extravaganza that features Brad Pitt as a assassin who just came out of retirement and is sent on a seemingly simple mission in order to just grab a briefcase off a bullet train in Kyoto that's on its way from Tokyo to Kyoto in Japan, and discovers that he is not the only assassin on board. This is a great ensemble cast. It's so much fun from start to finish. The jokes all hit, are on point. The flashbacks for all the different various assassins that keep getting introduced and thrown into the movie at various and different assorted points. It's just all hilarious. And are there a lot of plot contrivances in order to make sure that things kind of fit? Yes, there are. What's it called? Is the ending kind of a little bit forced? Sure. Does every characterization work? Not really, but guess what? I don't care, because it all contributes to just a massive boatload of fun that I had throughout this entire movie. I'll say right now, this was the Suicide Squad for me of this year. I had so much goddamn fun with it. Every moment of this movie just had me cracking up with laughter. The Ryan Reynolds twist, the Channing Tatum twist, the Brian Tyree Henry hitting Joey King at the end of the movie, which is one of the most satisfying final scenes of any movie that I've seen. Michael Shannon getting his head blown like clean off in half. Brad Pitt's just reactions to everything. This movie is pretty much like if you took Brad Pitt's character from True Romance and turned him into an assassin, and he somehow hadn't aged in like 30 years. This movie is everything that I wanted from a movie and more. And it's directed by the dude who did Atomic Blonde and Deadpool 2. I can't wait to see this guy's next couple of movies. He is like really making a name for himself as one of the primary action guys of the year. Bullet Train, my number 10.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed parts of Bullet Train. I thought it had a good ensemble for the most part. I loved Aaron Johnson in that movie as well, who's that if that was his audition for a Guy Ritchie movie, I mean, he got the part, right?
And hey, now
So,
he
should be.
He is said to have had a very, very seemingly excellent meeting with the Broccoli's producers for the next James Bond. So
I would not I would not turn that down. I love
Right?
Aaron Johnson. He
Right?
rules. Yeah, it's definitely my least favorite Leach movie so far. I definitely think he uh, has is one of the best action filmmakers we have right now. And some of that movie has some good action, but I don't think the story and the action blend together as well as his other films. Even Hobbs and Shaw, which I actually did enjoy a little bit more and I thought worked a little bit more as a whole. But I definitely can't wait for his next movie, The Fall Guy, with Ryan
Yes.
Gosling and Aaron Johnson. So yeah,
Yes.
I'm definitely looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah, the Fall Guy
Moving
almost sounds like a better version of the Gray Man.
Oh, yeah, hopefully, and Ryan
Yeah,
Gosling rocks, so,
absolutely. Yeah.
moving into my number 9 is a movie I really was looking forward to, but, like I said, the fact that it sustained into my top 10 for 2022 proves to you how great this year was, and I'm talking about Scream, AKA Scream 5,
Yeah.
directed by the Radio Silence guys, and I'm a big Scream guy, but this is probably the first Scream movie to make my top 10 of a year since the first Scream.
Yeah.
This year rocks,
Yeah,
Dominic.
what the hell? Like, what
Yeah,
is going
exactly.
on?
That's what I'm talking about. To put it into context, but I genuinely enjoy this movie. It's definitely rewatchable. Radio Silence, they definitely did an improvement over the fourth film. It's definitely like a better version of the fourth film. It takes a few elements from that fourth film and expands on them. And I think the Ghostface killers, without spoiling anything, are honestly the best we've gotten since the first movie, and those performances are exceptional. The ensemble isn't always great. Melissa Barrera is a questionable choice for this character to lead, the next group of screamagers or whatever you want to call them.
Coin that term right now, screamagers. I love it.
Screamagers, but I don't know. I can't wait for the next movie. It looks fucking sick and it sounds sick, and I already think I know who's going to be the killer, but I thought I knew who the killer was going to be going into this, and he died halfway through, and it was Dylan Minnette, and he was not the killer. So I love the unpredictability of this franchise, and I love that the script didn't feel like the script for Scream 3, which felt like he was the Aaron Kruger who was nominated for an Oscar for Top Gun
Yeah,
Maverick.
that's right. That's right. Aaron Kruger, the writer of Scream 3 and Transformers Revenge of the Fallen.
And Reindeer Games.
And Reindeer Games. An Oscar nominee.
Yeah, and it's
figure
like,
that one out.
Like Scream 3 feels like somebody like doing an impression of Kevin Williamson's writing, but this movie feels seamless. Like it's written by two other guys. One of the guys wrote this movie Urge, this horror movie Urge with Danny Masterson and Pierce Brosnan and Justin Chatwin. Check that out and get stoned.
That already sounds awesome.
It's really fun.
Just based off those three people alone, that already sounds awesome.
No one liked Pinocchio. Robert Zemeckis' Pinocchio.
Oh,
Michael.
God, not the Robert. I was about to say, like, wait. Are you talking about the Robert Zemeckis one or the Guillermo del Toro one? You got to be specific. We got 3 different Pinocchio
movies. The Pauly
movies
Shore movie, too. And,
oh, my God.
No,
yes,
but
so
one more thing is that Mikey Madison and Jack Quaid, like they're fucking phenomenal in this. And Jack Quaid is becoming, like, my favorite Quaid, slowly but surely. And Mikey Madison is super hot and super talented and funny and has a weird knack of getting cast as a person who gets set on fire.
Yeah.
Weird, really strange coincidence, but she rocks in it.
Yeah,
right?
Case in point. Yeah, the
only died like a pussy.
the only confusing thing that I have with this movie is it's like the fact that they did the Halloween thing where they just renamed this movie the same title as the original, but then the next movie they're calling Scream 6. I'm like, why didn't you just call this one Scream 5 then? Like, that one makes no sense to me.
Here's the thing. On the poster, you could kind of tell that the M was fashioned as a V.
Right, but it's not in any of the marketing. They never call it Scream 5. The movie is called Scream. So
it's a thinker.
Scream
5 is a thinker.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited to see this movie. I had faith that this movie was going to be great just based off of the fact of how hard those guys crushed it with Ready or Not, which was one of the biggest surprises for me of 2019. But I'm waiting for this movie because what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a binge of all the Scream sequels, which, fun fact, I have never seen a Scream movie other than the first one. So I'm going to wait until we're closer to 6. So I'm going to binge all of these sequels together and see how they all pan out. So, what is it you said? You said 2 is okay, 3 sucks, 4 is okay, and 5 is great.
1 great is a classic.
Right.
2,
we know that.
Great. I love 2. Super underrated sequel.
Okay.
3, awful.
Awful. Like, I've heard that 3 is like unwatchable.
4, really solid, but it's honestly brought down a little bit because of how better the 5th one is.
Okay. Got it.
So
Yeah, because for the longest time you said
2,
that,
5, 4, 3. That's how I rank them.
Yeah, because for the longest time you said that like 4 was like actually a lot better. That I feel like 4 was like kind of hit or miss for people, where some people said it was
A
good,
lot
some
better
people said
than
it
what?
wasn't.
A lot better than it was? Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I thought that it's a lot better than how people said it was.
right.
I liked it. I thought it was solid. It's definitely better than 3. I definitely don't get why Hayden Panettiere alone is better than that
And
entire.
she's coming back for 6. So
And she good. She should.
yeah,
Like she rocks, and
yeah.
we're both single, I think. So like,
Yeah,
no. All right,
I'm
move on
definitely
to your
single.
number 9.
I'm definitely single. Yeah, let's
Move
move on to
on to
number
your
9 before we get into trouble. Yeah, my number 9. This is a movie, like, and another one, like Bullet Train. I went back and forth. I was very, very confused. I didn't know if this one, because I couldn't tell if this was one of those movies that I'm like, do I like this or do I love it? And number 9 is The Banshees of Inisherin. And basically, where my conundrum for this movie came down from is it was a movie that, again, I loved watching it the first. There's something about Martin McDonagh's writing where even in his some of his more like bombastic and over the top and ridiculous movies like Seven Psychopaths and Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, he is always able to capture these like quaint human moments so well. I still think he hasn't done it as well since In Bruges. That to me is still the movie that perfectly seamlessly blends these just idiosyncratic normal seeming conversations between characters that that are in these over the top, larger than life positions, but because the characters keep themselves so grounded, you're able to like just go along with the story and just be completely like surprised at every turn. And this is easily like his most quiet and most philosophical movie yet, which is why I can understand if this is like a little bit of like a shift for most people that are used to like his more overly bombastic style. But people got to remember, like, he's a playwright first and foremost. I actually saw one of his plays also that had a very eerily similar title to this called The Cripple of Inishmin back in college. It was actually pretty good, but it was so unlike anything that I'd ever seen from him before. So naturally, you can imagine, I'm like, okay, so this is a movie that reunites Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson after their In Bruges reunion, and basically, it's the initial premise is like they're friends one day, and then one day Brendan Gleeson just stops talking to him. What's going to happen? I'm like, oh, so is this going to result in like some more crazy shenanigans happening on this island? It's like, no, it ends up actually being this like really quiet, like quaint philosophical discussion about like what is more important, being perceived as being nice or not at all, and instead like being more so remembered for your impact. And that actually like got me thinking a lot more, because it got me thinking about like discussions that I've had with people, like friendships that I've had with people. Because at first the joke was, it's like, wow, this is like just discussions and banter that I would have back and forth with my old roommate that I used to live with, where it's like, again, I would be more the jovial one and he would be more the serious one and stuff like that. But it really did get me thinking about like, I'm like, yeah, and especially because this does take place in such a quaint little town. It's got that very like off kilter kind of like, when you're like kind of isolated from when you're like right on the outskirts of society to like kind of sort of know what's going on, but be separated from the rest of the chaos and confusion. Like all that stuff I thought was really interesting. There were some really great character moments. I thought Barry Keoghan in particular really, his whole arc throughout the movie, like really struck me hard. I also love, like, I haven't been to Ireland in several years, but like, I love that feeling of like, just because you're just surrounded by like miles and miles of fields and nature and stuff. Like you get that feeling of kind of mystery and the supernatural element. And even though this movie doesn't have a distinctly supernatural overtone, I think it still does a really good job of like kind of inserting it in like these brief little pieces throughout. And even though the movie doesn't necessarily have a conclusion to what it's going for, I still think the way that it like kind of executes it and the way that you kind of spend time with these characters, I think was enough to like allow it to not quite fall into the play as a movie territory and actually like feel like something compelling and interesting. So that's ultimately why it ended up making my list. Number 9, Banshees of Inisherin.
Yep. I love Martin McDonagh. He's one of my favorite writer-directors of the last 15 years. I adore Seven Psychopaths and In Bruges, and I love Three Billboards as well, even if it's a slight step behind those two. This was, again, with going with your number 10, it's my least favorite film of Martin McDonagh's because it felt a little too fably and the most like a play. But like I understand your points. I don't really disagree with you, but like it just didn't come together as well enough as his other films. But I still really enjoyed it, and I thought it was very solid. And the performances, like I said, are all phenomenal. Colin Farrell, and Kerry Condon, I think are going to win the Oscars. And moving into my number 8, and yep, Laugh, Chippendale, Rescue Rangers, Disney Plus original, people, 2022.
Also, primetime Emmy TV film winner, I will have you guys know as well.
Cinema is alive and well.
Absolutely. It's surviving and thriving.
I mean, yeah. It's pretty. I mean, it is like people are gonna scoff at this, but it is the 21st century equivalent to a Who Framed Roger Rabbit because I mean, this is the best one. What other better example is there?
There is
Happy Time Murders, really? Looney Tunes back in action? Get the fuck out of here! Like this movie rules. Akiva Schaffer rules. Lonely Island rules. Andy Samberg rules. John Mulaney rules. Everything rules. The humor is right up my alley. It's just edgy enough to be good for kids and appropriate for kids. Ugly Sonics in this movie, like it's really fun. It's a good mystery. Post Malone, come on, it's fun. I like it. Leave me alone. Don't judge me. I'm sorry that I like this more than Everything Everywhere All at Once. I enjoyed this movie. It made me feel warm inside. I would show this to my kids. I'm probably never having kids, nor should.
Nah, people were. This is already I knew was the movie that people were going to be way too harsh on because everybody that I know that I trust and seen this has loved this movie. So I don't get why
it's adorable.
Yeah,
it's
adorable. Like, I don't get why people would hate that. I'm like, I watched it. I'm like, isn't this like a continuation of like the Lord Miller train, you know, like, or the Lonely Islands train? I'm like, when did it become popular to start hating on Lonely Island? You know, wasn't Popstar like hailed as like the most underrated, underwatched comedy of the last like?
It's not the Lonely Island element. It's the fact that it's trying to be like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And people don't like when Who Framed Roger Rabbit is getting homage to because of how groundbreaking of a movie that was. But like, if anybody's gonna do it,
Who Framed Roger Rabbit is basically like almost like frame for frame Chinatown, but with cartoon characters.
Oh yeah, so but like, no, you know my point though. Like with the technology and like the structure and everything, and yeah, it's CGI and like I love like the combinations of animation, by the way, in this movie, and like how all the styles. Like I feel like that was a big problem everyone had with this movie. Was just to shit on the animation for some reason, but I thought it was really well done. I don't know,
intentionally done that way, like the whole CG animation versus traditional 2D animation drawn.
And there was a bunch of shit in this movie too. Like there was some like claymation shit in it that was really well executed, with J.K. Simmons's character. And like the only shitty thing about this movie was Kiki Lane, who like if she wasn't in this movie, it'd be like a 9 out of
Slowly
10.
starting to be added to my list of Hollywood poison actors as well.
She has no personality.
Again, where the minute that she's going to show up in something, I'm like, oh, I feel that didn't start with me. Like I watched her in Beale Street, and Beale Street was like kind of coy, but like I didn't mind it. I had a bunch of other problems with that movie. For me, it was The Old Guard. When she showed up in that, I'm like,
I didn't even watch that.
It was awful. And hey, Gina, same person directed The Old Guard, directed The Woman King. I'm seeing a pattern here show up.
Such a. I didn't bring this up the last time. The Woman King is such a stupid title. All right, moving on. Moving on.
I'm so glad that somebody else agrees.
Yeah, because what's a woman king? A queen.
Right, exactly. What does that mean?
So like, let's move on. You're number 8.
Number 8. Okay, the fact that there are 3 Pinocchio movies that came out in the year 2022 is kind of insane. I don't know why that was a thing. I don't know. It's like, okay, so Disney put out their latest shitty cash grab reboot that was always going to be terrible from the minute that they came up with the idea for. And then there was a Pauly Shore one that for whatever reason referenced like the Ninja Turtles in the middle.
Skitty.
I don't know, but look, there was only one Pinocchio movie we're talking about. There's only one Pinocchio movie that's worth holding up a candlestick, pun intended, to the classic Disney film. That is, of course, Guillermo del Toro's Netflix original, Pinocchio. Gorgeous stop motion animation, fantastic voiceover cast, some incredible subject matter. It's just like this movie, it's another thing like Bullet Train. You knew exactly what you were getting going in. It's a return to form for Del Toro, who, after making 2, quite frankly, really boring and frankly not at all good Oscar-baiting movies in the form of The Shape of Water and Nightmare Alley, 2 movies that I do not understand why people love as much as they do, like at all. This movie, it's everything that I love about Del Toro as a filmmaker. It's charming. It's magical. It's beyond beautiful to look at. It's got this incredible balance between like this childlike wonder and this really weighty understanding of death and the fact that life is finite. Like there are so many different references to death in ways that I was not at all expecting in this movie. There's he does the whole thing where it's like, again, it's a children's fable set against the backdrop of a Nazi occupied space, similar to what he did with Pan's Labyrinth, only this time he moves from 50s, early 1900s Spain to 1940s fascist Italy. And yeah, there's really nothing more I can say. Like I said, you watch just a frame of this movie for the art, and it's absolutely gorgeous to look at. You know, the voiceover cast, it's all spectacular. Del Toro's another guy that just gets nothing but superstars to work with him. Again, you got you got David Bradley, the voice, who is normally cast as these like grumpy, curmudgeon-y old bastards, and it playing like the voice of this warm father who all he wants is his son back, who he lost, and creates this pain. You know, Ewan McGregor as the cricket character, Tilda Swinton, Ron Perlman, Finn Wolfhard, what's it called, Christoph Waltz, Kate Blanchett, who doesn't actually speak in the movie. She just does monkey sound effects as Christoph Waltz, like monkey assistant. That's all she does, and that's great, you know. And yeah, it's one of the best.
Sean penned her and Angry Birds.
Sean penned her. Yes, all she does is monkey sounds. You do not hear Kate Blanchett's voice at all. It is. I love when movies troll people like that. It's the best. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I hate that I have to put his name in front of this in order to differentiate this from the other Pinocchios that we got this year, especially since he only directed half of this. There was another guy on board whose name I can't remember now that directed the stop motion, but yeah, it's great. I loved it. It was an absolutely magical movie. I heavily recommend it. Please go watch it on Netflix if you haven't already. Dustin, you're number 7. Oh boy. Here we go. Oh, we're getting warmed up. Where is Luke? Luke, get in the comments right now. Where are you? Come on, man. We've been waiting for it. You're the one that's always talking about the mayhem, man. Come on.
Ambulance is my number
Let's
7.
Fucking go.
Michael Bay's Ambulance, baby.
This is the best movie he's done. This is the best movie he's done in like almost 15 years. Since Pain and Gain.
This is my favorite since Pain and Gain, but really ever since Pain and Gain with this and 13 Hours and fucking 6 Underground and now Ambulance. Dude, Ambulance is my number 7 movie of the year. This year sucked. Okay, this year has sucked. All right, I'm sorry. I'm not saying, but this is like a strong 8.5 out of 10. I really did dig this movie, and it's better on rewatch. But like, it's my number 7 movie of the year. Pain and Gain wasn't even that high in the year. You know what I mean? I love that more than that, like significantly more. But like, Ambulance is just so well directed. It's one of the most well-directed movies of the year. It's tense as fuck. It's a great throwback to 90s action, crime, heist movies. Jake Gyllenhaal is incredible in this movie. One of his very best performances. Should have been nominated for supporting actor, and that's a campaign that really should have happened. Fuck Andrea Riseborough. But
right? Apparently now the Oscars are looking in to see if you like got nominated for logistical reasons. I'm like, what does that even mean?
Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is good in this as well as his brother, I guess. His brother. And
not from another mother, apparently.
No, apparently, yeah.
Okay.
And Isa Gonzalez is also amazing in this as well. This is her best work as an actress. She's been getting better and better and better as the years have progressed since Baby Driver, which I wasn't that impressed with her. But she's great, and also single, I believe. Call me. And I love Lauren Baugh's score, by the way. I think it's one of the most underrated scores of the year. He's one of the best in the game doing it. He also had a great Black Adam score, if I'm not mistaken. Really fucking dig that guy as an artist. Love the cinematography, love the drone shots. I think the ensemble is also like one of the most underrated of the year. It's not star-studded, but there's a lot of familiar faces. Garrett Dillahunt, the fucking blonde bully from Project X, is in this. Just a lot of cool familiar faces, a lot of cool bit players. Oh yeah, Keira O'Donnell, the guy from Wedding Crashers. He's the lead FBI agent on this. Like, he rules. I loved Ambulance. Close as I really liked it, but in the context of this list, I loved it because it's in my top 10.
Absolutely. No, this was one of the absolute best thrill rides that I had. I remember, fuck Top Gun. This was the movie that, like, when I saw this in theaters, I'm like, okay, we're back. Like, just
Ambulance
the action. Once it starts, that shit does not stop until the very end. Just 2 things I wanted to point out. So Michael Bay references 3 of his movies in the first 10 minutes of the movie, which is insane, and I love it. The fact that Yahya Abdul-Mateen's character has the same name as William Fichtner's character from Ambulance. They're both those characters' names are William Sharp is amazing. I think that's incredible.
You mean from like Armageddon?
From Armageddon, yeah. Sorry, which one did I say?
You said Ambulance.
Oh, I meant Armageddon. I do it all the time. But yeah, that was insane to begin with. Just the action of this was nuts. But when those two are singing along to Sailing, that was like one of the most unintentional, intentional, hilarious needle drops.
No, it was genuinely. This movie's genuinely funny.
It is genuinely
when it wants
funny.
to be.
Right.
Like the whole. We didn't even like that whole sequence with the surgery.
Yeah.
That's like one of the most like craziest and grossest and funniest
one of the
things.
few instances in a Michael Bay movie where it's totally, completely illogically sound how they pull it off, but it doesn't matter because it's so goddamn compelling. This is what I mean when I say that like movies don't have to be logical 100% of the
Oh,
time.
I forgot to mention Wale as Jake Gyllenhaal's assistant, who's like obsessed
right.
with soccer and flamingo and the little flamingo. This movie's great.
It's so good.
I really like.
Also, I had to point this out. This is the first Michael Bay movie where the female lead is not really that sexualized in any way. They just like let her be efficient and good at her job and just stand out.
She's
I mean,
just
they
hot
don't need to because she's just hot in general. But no,
she's already hot.
This movie fucking rules. I wanted to put it in my top 10 so badly. All right, moving on to my number 7. RRR, probably the biggest surprise of the year in the sense of this was the movie that, I have this thing with hype now where when something gets overhyped, I'm like, great. Now I can't watch it because I got to wait until the hype dies down. Is why I didn't watch Squid Game when it first dropped last year. I had to wait until the hype died down to see if it was actually good. And this one, from the minute that this came out, I don't remember like when this first started to catch on, but I think it was like back in May. And this was another one that just like people kept talking about throughout the whole year. And I'm like, oh my God, this stupid friggin' Indian movie. And I see the clips and it's nutso shit, like running through the woods, smacking tigers in the face. Like these two guys just going at it, like, you know, doing this stupid dance and shit. And I'm like, what the hell is this movie even about? And then I do a little bit of reading on the plot. And the plot's simplistic. It's like, okay, like there's dumb stuff that happens here. Like I'm like, okay, so the one guy is like an Indian vigilante who's like helping to like fight against the British Empire. The other guy is like is an Indian working for the British government who's been sent out to capture this guy, but he's secretly like a plan in order to you know, as placed there as revenge for his villains. Like there's a whole lot of plot mechanics in there, and ultimately at the end of the day they don't matter because once you actually watch this movie and realize just how hard this movie goes, oh man, like this might be the best action movie of the year. And I know it's kind of crazy considering that, you know, we literally just spent like 5 minutes talking about ambulance, but like the shit that happened in this movie, I can't believe when I'm watching half the time because I'm like, in any other instance, I'm like, this would be so effing stupid. I can't take it seriously. But there was just something about how seriously they take it that really is like surprisingly compelling. Like I genuinely like enjoy the bromance that develops between Ram and Beam, I believe, are the two characters' names. Like I gotta check. I probably already screwed that. Or sorry, Raj and Beam are the two characters' names. The plot mechanics that they have to jump through in order to make sure that like how these two become like best friends when the one is hunting the other are ridiculous, but they even managed to make that work. And every time that you think that this movie is going to go in one direction and end, there ends up being another plot twist that comes in that just shifts the plot and keeps it going. 3 hours and it flies by. This was truly, again, just one of the most like spectacular experiences that I had of the year. It is equal parts ridiculous, fun, awesome, engaging, heartwarming. Like the musical drops in this scene, probably some of the best of the year. I was totally not expecting this at all. Like again, one of the few movies that actually lived up to the hype. RRR, Rise, Revenge, Revolt, I believe is what it is called, or Roar, Revenge, Revolt, something along those lines. It was really good. I heavily recommend it. It's on Netflix, so go watch it if you haven't already. Dustin, you're number 6.
I'm sure RRR is good. I just don't have the tolerance or patience for Bollywood or Tollywood or whatever Indian wood cinema. Because like those movies, like they're all like 3 to 4 hours long, and they're all like action, drama, comedy, musical, rom-com.
It's all the above. They just make
like,
every movie like every genre.
It's like just too overstimulating for me, but like I respect your opinion.
It was exactly what I needed this year. I needed to be overstimulated a little bit. That I'm really glad I watched it.
Yeah,
it was a lot though.
The movie.
The not to dance scene alone. I'm like, what the hell is this? I can't stop watching though. It is so goddamn engrossing. Dude, there was a scene where they drive a fucking truck through the gates, turn the truck around. The dude on top rolls off, pulls the carpet off, and the main guy jumps out holding 2 torches with, I kid you not, like 2 tigers, like this whole cadre of animals, and they all jump out at once in slow motion. It's ridiculous. I can't explain it.
All right, well,
nuts.
moving on. Now to sound like a normie of the day, my number 6 is Batman.
Oh no, you got to preface it. It's the Batman. The same thing as last year was the Suicide Squad, because there are already movies that came out beforehand that have the
Batman,
removed.
Baby.
So.
Hell yeah. I got Matt Reeves, the Batman.
Batman.
Starring Robert Pattinson and Paul Dano. And I loved it. Great blockbuster. Great. Matt Reeves is in the running with Christopher Nolan as like great mainstream blockbuster filmmakers. who can make great films that are also super successful and accessible to mainstream audiences. And of course, he has the Batman working for him before the movie comes out. That name alone is going to bring butts and seats, but people did dig this, and it was very well made and directed and shot and scored by Michael Giacchino, and the cast is all phenomenal. Robert Pattinson, if he's given another shot at this role, I think he can become the definitive Batman for some people, even though he still has big shoes to fill because of Christian Bale. Paul Dano is incredible as the Riddler, and I love seeing one of my favorite actors as a child become a great Batman villain, and he's still not nominated for an Oscar. Go fuck yourselves,
Well,
Academy.
what? Like, how did that happen? How did Judd
And he should
Hirsch
have
get
been. He
nominated?
should have been nominated for this movie.
Should have been nominated for this. Exactly.
No, the Academy was like, no,
Not another comic book before. We already nominated one Joker. We can't nominate. Like, he's not even the Joker.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they nominated Keegan.
Yeah.
Who plays the Joker in this movie.
That
was
is
also
true.
great.
That
I
is
love
true.
Barry Keegan. Give him another chance at playing the Joker. He would fucking rock if he's like the
God.
main villain in a movie.
Put it this way, 5 seconds of screen time in that movie, and I already want to see his Joker over anything else having to do with Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. And I know you like that movie, but like,
Zoe Kravitz, I didn't like as much as Anne Hathaway, but she's still really hot and solid in the movie. I thought John Turturro was kind of, miswritten. Jeffrey Wright was like really odd in that movie too. But and I didn't like the actress that played the mayor. I thought she was super strange in that. But other than that, I thought it was really well done and super entertaining and a little socially relevant as well.
I still think the funniest part of that movie is when they after that amazing car chase sequence, which again rivals the entire chase sequence in Ambulance, when they capture Colin Farrell's the Penguin, who also Colin Farrell.
Oh, Colin Farrell's
crushing
great
this year, but his performance as the Penguin, holy shit! And like
what am I looking at? Come on,
that scene where it's just him and Jeffrey Wright having a yelling contest was hilarious, and where he's like, that's like the worst Spanish I ever heard, and like him doing like a 1940s like gangster accent. I thought that was hilarious. But the scene when they both drive away and they leave him handcuffed and he goes waddling off, that shit had me dying laughing. I thought that was so great. 3 hours long. I can't say it flies by, but it definitely makes very good use of its pacing. And again, while I don't think it is definitely the best on-screen version of Batman that we've gotten since the Bale movies. And while it did not make my top 10, it was still one of the best that this year had to offer. And I'm very excited to see where this goes forward, assuming, of course, that, like you said, Matt Reeves does get a chance to make more of these movies. So moving on to my number 6, Emergency, a movie that you talked about in your honorable mention. This was a movie that debuted at Sundance, was dropped on Amazon over the summer. I've been meaning to watch it for a while because the premise sounded really cool. And I started watching it, and I watched it actually over the break. It was one of a few movies that I caught up on over the break. And this movie just floored me. Holy shit. It's one of those movies that I just completely did not expect and had no idea going in what it was going to be. And then as the movie got, like, the initial premise was already great. The way that it starts off where it's like, again, just like, this foreign kid who's just trying to fit in, ends up in a scenario that, I'm going to be completely honest, no person of color or minority ever wants to be in. And like all the points that are brought up are just raised in order to make this movie more and more and more relevant. And it builds and builds and builds to this climax that ultimately is kind of confusing, but also like extremely dead on and dead set about what it wants to say. And again, this is just a movie that knows exactly what it is doing. I'm being very, very coy and very general about the plot specifics because I don't want to spoil anything. Some of the absolute best performances of the year. RJ Kyler in the supporting / co-lead performance is just rocking on all cylinders. I cannot wait to see what he does. The lead actor, Donald Watkins, as the main character, Kunle. Sebastian Chacon, who for whatever reason, I think the Wikipedia profile I looked at mistook and said Steven Chacon. I think somebody screwed that up at one point, but Sebastian Chacon is great in the performances. I even think that like the supporting players like Sabrina Carpenter, Maddie Nichols, and Madison Thompson, like they're kind of generic in one note, but they're cast intentionally that way. And in order to fill out the plot more, and in order to like kind of complete the theme at the end, and probably one of the most haunting final shots of any movie that I've seen. This and one other movie that's going to pop up on this list were the indie surprises for the year for me, and I absolutely loved every single minute of it. So Emergency, it's streaming on Amazon. Definitely go watch it if you guys get a chance. Dustin, you're number 5.
My number 5 is also another movie that won the Waldo Salt Screenwriting Award at Sundance the year before. And that was On the Count of Three. And it wasn't released until this year wide. They fumbled the bag on that one. They
Yeah,
even
they did.
they shortened it a little bit too from the original cut that I saw on Virtual Sundance. But other than that, Gerard Carmichael, comedian, actor, stand-up comedian, great in the Neighbors movies. Had his own sitcom on NBC. Just hosted the Golden Globes. He directed this movie. It's his directorial debut. He stars along Christopher Abbott. They star as two uh, suicidally depressed friends who decide to kill each other, but before they do that, vow to take revenge on people that have wronged them. And I think it's a terrific debut. It's darkly funny. It's written by Ari Katcher and Ryan Welchers, those two guys who write on Rami, I believe, this show on Hulu, which is pretty good. But this movie is just terrifically dark and really realistic. And the friendship between Abbott and Carmichael is incredible. And Christopher Abbott probably gives like one of the greatest performances of this new decade so far. Is probably my favorite performance of the year. He has a monologue in the beginning of this movie that floored me and made me laugh and just really it stuck with me for 2 years now. And yeah, I think it's incredible work, and I hope he becomes an A-lister soon. It has a really strange kind of tonally odd ending, but other than that, it's a really good fucking movie and a great debut, like I said.
Absolutely. I'm going to save my thoughts on this movie for later on because this movie may or may not pop up later on my list. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. My number 5, getting into some more of the conventional choices, Tar. This was a movie that, again, heard everything about it from the pundits, all of the Oscar baits, everything. And I'm just like, yeah, this movie lived up to the hype. Dustin, I think you said the description best, where again it's about a female conductor who finds herself as in almost like kind of this, I don't even know how to describe it, like this cancel culture-esque situation where she kind of has to grapple with like, you know, am I this certain type of person or whatnot. And this movie is directed by Todd Field. It's his first movie in 16 years since Little Children, and it is spectacular from start to finish. It is one of the most tremendous filmmaking efforts that I've seen so far of the year, so much so that Martin Scorsese even hailed it as the return to cinema. We got to just throw out these pundits whenever we can. But yeah, it's one of the movie is just anchored in Cate Blanchett who is just acting her ass off, chewing every single bit of scenery that she is in. And the movie asks, I think, some really interesting questions about, like, you know, about what it means to be canceled, like the types of people that like cancelers usually go after. And like, it examines it, I think, from like a lot of different perspectives that are quite interesting. And like the journey that she goes on throughout it, like it could so easily be dismissed as just being another situation of, oh, well, she's just another rich person. Why do we care about this? When I think that it does like a really good job of like separating like why she views herself as being like this powerful and this influential, you know? But like, again, there is a reason why only certain people can make it in those types of roles, because you have to be driven amongst everything else, and that has to be your sole focus at the point where nothing else really matters. And that is exactly how this struggle is personified in the character of Lydia Tarr as portrayed by Cate Blanchett. Like I said, it is immaculately filmed, just amazing everything all around: cinematography, editing, score. I love whenever they can use like classical music in like a more contemporary sense, and this is just done in friggin' spades. Some of these supporting actresses around her and performances there are just spectacular. There's one particular sequence where, again, she goes to follow this one girl into this like abandoned shelter, and you don't really know where it's going, and the sequence kind of goes nowhere, but it's still just so haunting to watch. Absolutely. This is just a movie that had such a profound effect on me when I saw it. And yeah, it's Tar. Blanchett's winning her 3rd Oscar for this, like no doubt.
Yeah, Blanchett deserves it too. It's my second favorite performance of the year. She's incredible in it. It's again my least favorite film of a director on your list, but I love Little Children and In the Bedroom. They're incredible films, but this is equally at points as good. And it has some of the best cinematography of the year as well. My number 4, probably the biggest
surprise.
Biggest surprise of the year for me: Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery.
Yeah, was not expected. Like, I like this movie a lot. Was not expecting you to like it as much, especially given your history with Rian Johnson.
No, I just hated I'm not going to say that I hated Knives Out, but I hated the attitude of that movie.
Yes.
I hated the smugness. I hated the fucking like, oh, I'm the cleverest one in the room kind and fuck the audience kind of attitude
So
that it
Ryan
felt
Johnson's
like.
just general attitude about everybody.
Yeah, and it like, and especially coming right off of fucking the
Ugh.
Last Jedi, which I
Yeah.
still think sucks. That's still a shitty movie, and it's not because the Asian girl's in it. It's because it's a shitty movie. All
Yeah.
right, people. Okay,
It's like, are we
but like,
past that at this point?
well, some people like to use that as the excuse as why people didn't like it. It's good than anything. No, she sucked in it, and the movie sucked.
Yeah.
All right, so, like, let's just get over that. The first Knives Out is just such a smug, predictable, kind of almost utterly pointless movie. Except we get some cool, quirky performances. Daniel Craig, in particular, really carries the shit out of that movie. And Ana de Armas is solid, if a little bit overrated in it.
Mhm.
But everyone else to me in that just felt like an asshole just for the sake of being an asshole. And even though you could make the argument about some of the characters in this film, I feel like they're all given more depth and they all didn't feel like the same variation of the same character. Everyone kind of felt like the same character in the first movie to me. This felt a little bit more varied. The motives were a little bit more varied. And I just thought the humor worked and popped a little bit more and it's more well shot. There's better more tension. The mystery isn't given away halfway through, even though on a rewatch you could figure out the mystery, but that's kind of the point of these movies, I feel like, for Ryan Johnson, is for you to dissect it every time you watch it. But I think it works really well here. And the production design is phenomenal. And I like the tension that the production design and the setting bring because it brings more stakes that they're all stranded on an island like this. And a murder is happening, or maybe or maybe not, and I think all the performances are terrific. Edward Norton, Dave Bautista, Kate Hudson in a terrific performance. It's great to see her when she's phenomenal in something. Even the girl from Matrix is very good in this, Jessica Henwick. But Daniel Craig is phenomenal, and Janelle Monáe gives like one of the most surprising turns of this year and kicks Ana de Armas in the ass in terms of performance and range, I would say, because she has to play essentially two different characters in this movie, and she really doesn't miss a beat, not once. And I was with it until the very end, and the cut to credits was super satisfying. It's exactly what I wanted from the first movie, Dominic. That's why I liked it.
Yep.
That's why it's my number
again,
4.
I agree with you on all those points 110%. I tried to
Yeah,
make Chris understand that because he was not a fan of this movie as much as he was the first one.
yeah,
Like I said, it was the tongue-in-cheek nature. I liked it there that I felt like we actually get to know these characters a lot more than we did in the first one, and how they weren't just assholes for the sake of being assholes. They like all had like a motivation. I thought the performances, I just thought the ensemble just gelled much better this time around. Again, like the difference is they all felt like in the joke as opposed to like the first one where it's like, okay, the joke was just put on them, and that's why it kind of made it work. And you're right, like it didn't feel as smug. This is the first like non-smug movie that Johnson has done in almost 15 years since
Madeline Klein too is so hot. She's so
oh my
hot.
god,
Oh my god.
good I remember saying multiple times, I'm like, I am a few months older than Madeline Klein,
Yeah,
and she's in
she's
that.
sexy.
What the hell am I doing with my life?
Right?
Like, what the, like, I'm in acting school right now, and she's been doing this shit since a little guy. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Anyways, my number 4, a movie from a director whose first film that I saw from him, I was not a fan of and didn't get the hype around this guy. And then I started seeing his next couple movies, and I realized, oh no, I actually really like this guy as a director. I just didn't like the one star that he had in this movie. That is Luca Guadagnino with his movie Bones and All that came out, that stars Timothy Chalamet and Taylor Russell as cannibals who are traveling across the country trying to find themselves and people to eat in this instance, or rather how to control their eating habits. No, in all seriousness, this is a movie that like I kind of knew what the premise was, but was not sure how Luca's approach was going to be. And this ended up being one of my favorite movies of the year because just from the opening shot and the way that they're kind of able to like transfix and mix and meld this story that's like a mix between like a coming of age story and like also like an entrance into like this unknown like kind of underground like group network of people that like apparently exists. I'm like, okay, so there's just like traveling cannibals that still exist. That's a thing that happens. Okay. And like the fact that I wasn't grossed out and disgusted by it and actually was like kind of really invested in it. I'm like, this shouldn't work at all. But it does. And I loved Guadagnino's take on Suspiria. I thought that was fantastic. I thought that was a great addition. And that's funny because I keep coming back to Call Me By Your Name. And I'm realizing now that my problem with that movie was not the movie itself. My problem with that movie was Army Hammer. Because
Really?
because Army Hammer in that movie, the entire time I was watching, I'm like, I just don't buy this guy in this part. There's nothing docile. There's nothing sweet about this. It feels controlling and almost pedophilic, and not because of the not because of the age difference, because we know there's not actually that much of a crazy age difference between Armie Hammer and Timothée Chalamet. I know, again, it's supposed to be like he's supposed to be in college age and Timmy's supposed to be like in like younger high school and all that, but like there was nothing that felt innocent about that. It felt weird and gross the
I just
entire
think
time.
that's inherent of like what that was about, that movie. But
I disagree, because I think that if you get a different actor in that part, I think it feels significantly different. And so I'm attributing that to Hammer, and then it ends up like, it turns out, wow, he should have been in this movie because he's actually a cannibal, But yeah, no,
crash.
yeah, but bones and all, yeah, I was a big fan of it. I really love Chalamet. Taylor Russell is still one who I'm still trying to figure out if I like her as an actress or
Oh,
not.
I do.
One of the most disturbing and unsettling performances from Mark Rylance that I've ever seen. I'm like, what the hell? Just like that whole performance.
He's on a roll, that guy. That guy rocks.
It's insane. Like, after talk about going from like one of the most disappointing Oscar wins ever, where he stole Sylvester Stallone's Oscar in 2015 for Bridge of Spies.
The last 3 years, though,
and then it's
Trial
like,
of the Chicago
Trial
7.
of the Chicago 7. Don't look up. Fucking
the
best part about Ready Player One. Like, all of these different roles that are just like crushing it, and one after another. And I'm like, okay, so this guy's just the best at everything. Michael Stuhlbarg has a brief part in this movie that is equal parts
David Gordon Green.
And with David Gordon Green, of all people, too. No, this movie is awesome.
I liked it.
Yeah.
Solid.
Big fan of this movie. It just has everything that I want. I can't wait for Guadagnino's next movie that he's got coming out, except it's a tennis movie with Zendaya. Hey, who knows? Maybe he'll be the first person to actually get a
that's good, because
maybe he'll be the first person to actually get a good performance from Zendaya. Who knows? But yeah, Bones and All was fantastic. I loved it. It's not for everyone, but I had a blast with it. My number 4.
Yeah, Zendaya's overrated. Number 3, Vengeance.
Talk about this
directorial
movie.
The best directorial debut of this year, BJ Novak from The Office,
Your
or
guy.
Udovich, the little man from Inglourious Bastards. Yes, I love this movie. It has one of the most bizarre and like tonally unsure trailers I've ever seen, and I know that was probably a deterrent for people, but just give this movie a chance, because I feel like this is a slightly better version of what Jordan Peele was trying to do with Nope. And this movie doesn't have aliens or anything, or like a fucking, fart cloud, invisible fart cloud, vagina cloud, or whatever the fuck that was. It's about a guy who's trying to get a podcast off the ground, while kind of not really, but sort of, exploiting the death of one of his old flings. And her brother, played by Boyd Holbrook, calls BJ Novak and essentially invites him to the funeral. And then Boyd Holbrook kind of has this idea in his head that she was killed. And BJ Novak decides to, start a podcast and, pretty much interview people around the town and all their conspiracy theories and why everyone is obsessed with spectacle and conspiracy. Like Nope was trying, but not really getting at fully. And this movie is a great satire, and a subtle satire, and often naturally funny, and it's not forcefully funny. The performances all around, it's perhaps maybe one of the best ensembles of the year, with BJ Novak. Boyd Holbrook is phenomenal, and another, he's very off brand in this as well, and he's expanding on his range. He's really funny in this. What's her name? Fucking Jerry from Succession is in this.
Oh, J. Smith Cameron.
Yeah, she's very good. She has the Texas accent down pat. Issa Rae isn't annoying in this. She's actually quite good as like BJ Novak's boss at the podcast station, or whatever the fuck you would call that. And Ashton Kutcher gives the performance of his career, honestly, in like a 4-scene role as this mysterious music producer who may or may not be involved in the death of the girl. But he gives like some of the best monologues, and maybe you can call them on the nose, but his delivery and BJ Novak's reaction to those are just astounding. And it's one of the best climaxes of the year. I wish the ending shot was as satisfying, but I kind of understand why it ended that way. Other than that, it's a near flawless and hilarious and sweet. It has a really sweet satire, a sweet heart at the center of its core, and it has a really good twist of sorts as well, and a great reveal, and it kind of makes you recontextualize the whole movie, but in a good, sort of wryly funny way. And I highly recommend it. It was available on Peacock, but I really think it's one of the more original films that I've seen in quite a while, and that's all I ask for as a viewer. And I think it's thoroughly entertaining, and BJ Novak deserves to make more movies like this. And you know, it's definitely an improvement on his FX miniseries or anthology series, The Premise, which I saw all of, and you know, it was a mixed bag, that show, but this shows his potential as a filmmaker and a writer definitely better. I highly recommend it. I really loved it, and it was my favorite screenplay, I believe, of this year.
Awesome. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
this is one again. I really wanted to watch it. I just never got a chance to. It was not playing anywhere near me in theaters when I was living upstate. And then when I finally got down here, I just never got a chance to watch. But I really want to watch this one. I've heard a lot of good things about this. So
Mhm.
we'll do my number 3 first. And then we actually have the same number 2. So we'll hit that one at the same time. Because oh man, finally we get a chance to talk about this movie in depth. But real quick, I just got to talk about on the count of 3 real quick. Again, one that you have been ranting and raving about since you saw it at Sundance last year. And I wanted to watch it at Sundance and I missed the both screenings when it was available, so I had to wait until it dropped on Hulu this year. And I mean, talk about a botched campaign. This is one of the best movies that I may have seen just in general in my lifetime. Like, I don't think, and the reason why I say that, I don't think I've ever seen a movie, I believe I wrote this in my review when I saw this, that best captures kind of that really lost nihilistic feeling that most people in Generation Z have. I know Christopher Abbott and Gerard Carmichael are both millennials, but I feel like they do a great job of just capturing that feeling of just literally like living in a society where where just nothing seems to be going right and you don't know what to do with yourself, to the point where you literally have to form a suicide pact with your best friend as an excuse to just like have a good time with someone, you know? And like the ripple effect that you see that has on these two characters, how they both kind of start off in one position and then they slowly trade places by the end, where at the beginning, Gerard's the one who's really pushing them to kill each other, while Abbott's the guy who's like kind of unsure, not really sure what he wants to do. Gerard's like breaking him out of a mental institute. He isn't sure if he wants to live or die or not. And then you find out more about them as they go on their journeys. Then by the time they end, like Gerard like finds out that he's got a kid on the way, so he wants to live for his kid. And Abbott's like just at the end of the road. Like it's everything I want from a from a modern day buddy movie. The casting is great, the filmmaking is phenomenal. I know I dogged on Carmichael a little bit hard because I wasn't a fan of his monologue at the Golden Globe, but in all seriousness, he directs the hell out of this movie like an absolute pro. This movie is hysterically funny and wildly dark all at the same time. There's one particular instance, I think, where Abbott has a great line where you know what scene I'm talking about, the cashier scene with Jared Abramson, where he points a gun at him, where he's just like, dude, this guy's bleeding. And he's like, bro, you got to wait until I get my shit done. And now I got to start over. Then he points a gun at him. He's like, the worst thing you could do to someone is make them feel ignored. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, I feel like that is everything that people online are trying to get across in this kind of modern day, and like kind of the conundrum that they find themselves in at the end that results in the characters taking the action that they do. It's a phenomenal movie. I cannot recommend it enough. It's available to stream on Hulu. Dustin pretty much had everything that I wanted to say about this movie. So
when a customer is talking, you listen, bro. It hurts to be ignored.
It hurts to be ignored. Exactly. No truer words. I remember, I'm like, that shit hits deep. Yeah. Like really, really deep. So Dustin, let's talk about it. We've circled around it in a couple of other podcasts that we've been on. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the fall. Both of our number 2s so far this year. The menu. Man, first of all, what the fuck happened with this movie's Oscars chances? Like, what happened? Like, did the Academy just like look at this and say, nope, no thanks, we don't want anything to do with this because, you know, the people who you're making fun of in this movie are that they look a little bit too much like the people that make up the Academy? Like what happened? You know, why did this one fall through the cracks?
The satire is a little too accurate.
Oh, it's a little bit too on the nose for me. And it's like,
we'll give it a triangle of sadness instead.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. We're gonna go with that one, which barely functions as a comedy. Like,
because it's not that funny. It's just obnoxious. Just barfing and puking and like, oh, you're poor kind of jokes. Yeah. It's just like annoying.
This movie brilliantly categorizes and captures like everything that is wrong with the bourgeoisie just flexing themselves on everyone. I mean, I don't even know how to categorize this movie. It's a revenge thriller. It's a social satire. It's a dark comedy. It's a low-key foodie porn movie. Like, it's everything. It's got everything. It's got the best performance that Ray Fiennes has given since Voldemort as Harry Potter. Anya Taylor-Joy and Nicholas Holter here as like, as like these kind of two members of this, I don't even know how to describe it. Like this food expedition to this private island that's run by this exclusive chef that's really revealed as like this elaborate murder revenge scheme against all the people that have wronged him in his life. Dustin, take it from here. Like, I don't know how to like keep talking about this movie without just like losing my train of thought. But
Oh yeah, it's like I was saying, like I told you that one time. It's like a bedtime story, like a haunted bedtime tale that Kendall Roy would tell his kids. Like it's fucking great. It's like biting satire. It makes fun of every single person. It like Ray Fiennes. Like it makes fun of that character too. Like it's like Gordon Ramsay if he was on antidepressants and then he like got off of them and was like, I'm gonna
yeah,
murder
I'm
everybody.
gonna
Like that.
murder every.
Like that's essentially what it is almost. And Ray Fiennes, I hate his fucking name, but that performance is phenomenal,
Yeah,
and amazing. And Anya Taylor-Joy, I mean, this was originally written for Emma Stone, and obviously Emma Stone could have done this in her sleep, but it's nice to see Anya Taylor-Joy flex her chops more, and she's perfect in this and just
oh yeah.
super elegant, even though she's playing a whore. But like all jokes aside, she's great. And call me. Nicholas
It's
Holt.
like Dustin. I believe the term is like they are called hookers. It's like, oh, I thought they were call girls. No, when they're dead, they're just hookers.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, was that the nice guys?
No, that's Archer right there.
Oh, that's Archer. I thought it was
The nice guys. It's what's it called? But Dad, there's like whores in here and stuff. Sweetie, how many times have I told you? You don't say and stuff. You just say there are whores here.
Yeah, exactly. Nicholas Holt.
Nice guys.
It has like another. It probably has the best ensemble of the year.
Oh yeah.
Uniformly, it has Ray Fiennes, Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Holt is incredible in this.
Yes.
Fucking Judith Light,
Janet
McTeer, Reed,
John Leguizamo, Reed Birney, Rob Yang, like half the cast
Arturo
like
Castro.
Succession. Yes. Oh man,
Arturo Castro is great in it too. Yeah, everyone's great. Like the sous chef, the female chef, like
Hong
everyone
Chow,
was great.
another big
Hong Chow was
yeah.
good in this. Hong Chow was good in this too. Like the way she said tortilla, it's like this is hilarious. This movie, and it just I love how surreal the movie gets near the end,
Yes.
like almost like an Adult Swim kind of like produced movie. But it's like such a potent and brilliant satire. The final shot is just perfect. And it gets so ridiculous that you don't know whether to cringe or laugh, and it's just hilarious. I just think it has kind of Cabin in the Woods vibes almost, and it feels like I love the isolation of the movie, so that you could buy into like the weirdness because it feels so separate from our own reality, even though the satire is very on point. It toes such a brilliant fine line that Mark Mylod perfectly strikes.
Yes.
He's one of the best television directors to do it. But if he makes more directorial efforts like this, I think he could be one of the best directors working today. Because this movie is remarkable.
Yeah,
truly
this shit
remarkable.
is great. Like I said, this is Seth Reason, Will Tracy, I believe, are the screenwriter's name. It was a blacklisted script. It was originally set to be directed by Alexander Payne. Then he got canceled by Rose McGowan, and then Gary Sanchez production companies, while that was the whole thing, picked it up and produced it. Like I said, this is in the post-Succession heyday, and so yeah, everything about this movie just works right up. Dustin, the only thing I gotta say before we move on is, where did you go to school?
Brown.
Student loans?
No.
You're dying.
Yeah.
that might be line of the year right now. I remember when I saw that hit me just so hard. I'm like, yes, Ray Fiennes, you kill every single one of those rich asshole motherfuckers. Oh, it was great. The Menu is, we've already talked about this movie enough. One of the best of the year. Please go watch it. It's streaming on HBO Max now. All right, Dustin, let's get to it. Our number ones of the year. We have distinctly different, but I think each of our number ones, like in a strange way, there's a lot of similarities between these movies, but I feel like both these movies like kind of situate our personalities both well, because the thing about you and me is we've always had similar yet equally different personalities, where we I'll let our number one speak for themselves. So your number one favorite movie of 2022 is
Damien Chazelle's Babylon. I fucking adored it. I don't think it's as good as Whiplash. It's not as tight. Obviously, it's fucking 3 hours and 8 minutes, but the editing is almost just as comparable because it's the same guy who edited it, Tom Cross, I believe. It's so fucking good. I love how brisk it is. You could say it's ripping off Boogie Nights for a good portion of it, but the first act in and of itself is definitely its own thing and transports you into this world of like the mid to late 20s silent era and all like the rambunctious shit that's going on and like just the tension and just the comedy. It's like it has everything you want, and the editing style could be abrasive. The style in general could be so abrasive for someone that I get why, people were turned off by it. And elephant shit is thrown right in your face for the first 2 minutes of the movie, but it has a terrific ensemble like, The Menu and Vengeance. And, Margot Robbie, perhaps this might be her most harrowing performance yet. might not be her very best or my favorite, but it's up there. It has some of her best work for sure. Two scenes in particular. One where she's, ranting at, a bunch of rich people because, she feels embarrassed about her image at the time. And one earlier where she has to do a one take sequence. They're trying to have the perfect take and they're just trying to figure out sound in film for the first time. It's like one of the first attempts at them doing that. And they just can't get it right. And it takes like 5 or 6 takes. And I just want to say she deserved a nomination over Ana de Armas again. I'm reiterating that. And Brad Pitt deserved a fucking Oscar nomination over Judd Hirsch. He's absolutely heartbreaking in this and delivers one of my favorite monologues of the year about why he loves movies and why he can make a difference as an actor and a performer and why he loves doing what he does. Even though he might just be addicted to the decadence of the lifestyle like Robbie's character is, but he's kind of in denial about that. But PJ Byrne is great. It has a great lead performance in Diego Calva, who's amazing. Justin Hurwitz's musical score is dizzying and dizzying as it is equally beautiful. It's amazing. Maybe his best score of his career. And I was kind of sick of people comparing it to Wolf of Wall Street all the time just because it has Margot Robbie and cocaine, copious amounts of cocaine. But so what? It's still a fucking great movie. And Tobey Maguire is essentially the Alfred Molina character in Boogie Nights, but just replace the firecrackers with Ethan Suplee loudly spitting. And whatever. At least it wasn't a complete rip off. It's kind of its own thing. I love the whole highway under the LA highway, whatever that was, the hell of Hollywood or whatever they were calling that, hell of Los Angeles. That was a fucking great sequence too, like super memorable. And of course the ending, which has everyone split. It shows footage of Avatar and shit and Terminator, which some could call a little too on the nose, but I thought it was beautiful and like really poignant, and it was well earned because it was all building to that. And maybe the whole thing with Diego and Margot Robbie not successfully running away together was a little derivative of other movies before it. But I liked the tribute to Singing in the Rain, and I loved the heartbreakingness of this movie. Like I said, Brad Pitt was really my favorite performance of the film. His monologue to Catherine Watterson, like I said, is harrowing and beautiful and heartbreaking. And the scene where he's at the movie theater and he sees everyone's reaction to him saying, like a big romantic line, and they just don't take him seriously. And it's like super sad and like every actor's worst nightmare. And yeah, I thought it was a beautiful film. And even though it's not as perfect as Whiplash was right off the gate, I do think this has potential to grow as like a beloved film and hopefully gets a Criterion, hopefully would not piss on the front cover triangle of sadness.
Yeah, my whole thing with Babylon is that it was everything that I was expecting it to be, and as rambunctious and as over the top and as awesome as it was, for me, it's like everything that I got from that, I kind of knew I was going to get, if that makes any sense. And that's not to take away from the movie. It is a spectacular marvel of a movie, but like there is nothing in that movie that happened that I wasn't expecting or anticipating was going to happen. And right down to the montage at the end, I thought was, for me, that hedged a little bit too much on gratuitous, where it's like, oh, okay, we get it. Like this is, if this is trying to say that like movies as it is are over, like I don't know exactly how I feel about that. So that's the only reason why like the montage for me didn't exactly work out. But everything else about the movie just worked. It was an absolute marvel. The fact that again Chazelle just went for this in a way that so few filmmakers actually go for. I really, really admire that. The fact that again he got the best performance out of Brad Pitt in years. And I really love how Brad Pitt is having this amazingly late career like resurgence between Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Bullet Train and this movie. Like I'm really excited to see where he goes like the later career. There's also like the thing I also particularly love about Pitt's performance is that he's finally like got this understanding that he is like an older movie star, which I feel like something that like he hasn't had for like the last like couple years, and like he's gonna be 60 next year, which is insane to think about.
It was sort of his Rick Dalton, kind of
Yeah.
role. And what were you saying before that? I had a point that I was gonna say about oh yeah, Jean Smart.
Yeah.
I think the ending makes sense once you think back to her whole monologue to Brad Pitt
Right.
and why it all matters but doesn't at the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like I loved how that connected to each other. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Love Babylon. That was my favorite of the year. How's it going,
Yeah.
Francesca?
Frankie, what's up? Happy you were able to hop in at the last minute. Good to see you. Happy to see that you're still with us watching. Hope you've enjoyed some of the movies that we have put on our list. Hope this causes you to go and watch some of these movies because, again, I feel like, I think we've done a pretty good job of like covering some movies that, like, for the most part, not a lot of people watch because, unfortunately, most people still only watch whatever the Netflix algorithm is pushing their way or whatever garbage Marvel movie is on in the instant. Occasionally a few good horror ones, but we hope that we've given you guys some movies to actually watch that are good. But what's it called? Now to get to my number one. And I'm in a weird conflicted place with this number one because, like, this has been my number one since the minute that I saw it. But I guess the reason being is because this movie started out as the little movie that could and then turned into this like monstrous phenomenon that now has like 11 Oscar nominations. It is like one of the most beloved movies of the year. And I know for a lot of people that kind of distracts and deters away from it, but just because, again, Dan Kwan and Daniel Scheinert made a follow-up to Swiss Army Man that
Great
was
movie.
so overly bombastic, so ridiculous, just so pulled out of its ass, something that I was not at all expecting it to be. Like, I knew that this was going to involve a multiversal facet, but the fact that this was a much better and multiverse movie than fucking a Marvel movie that had the name multiverse, the term multiverse, it's everything ever all at once. Like, this has been my favorite movie of the year. I know. It's kind of the luster of
I'm
it.
happy for you. I like it. Yeah.
Because the luster of it has been ruined because so many other people have seen it and loved it, and it kind of isn't that like little movie that like we've only seen now, so that kind of has caused it to lose a little bit of its staying power. But this is still, this for the minute that I saw this back in March of this year, I'm like, this is the best movie I've seen so far this year, and nothing else is going to top this. I was waiting, I was hoping that something like Babylon or something like The Menu, which was a complete surprise, is going to top this. But yeah, this is just, it was an complete and utter absolute joy thrill ride to watch. Again, if you're just like, if you're like someone who's having family problems, you can relate to this. If you're somebody who loves crazy sci-fi, you can relate to this. If you're someone who like has been in love with these certain set of movie stars that really haven't had their just desserts and are now being seen in this whole new way, you can relate to this. If you love just watching just batshit crazy stuff happen on screen every frame, like the minute that Jamie Lee Curtis, I'll admit, is not the best in this movie, and certainly in my mind does not deserve an Oscar nomination at all. But the minute that she starts like spider web crawling across the floor and Short Round turns into Jackie Chan and starts kung fuing shit, and then it gets to the point where Jenny Slate is swinging around her little dog like a freaking mace, and guys are sticking dildos up their ass, and like the way that they
all right.
access the multiple, like all that shit, it worked. It just worked, and it was just every single minute this movie was throwing different shit at me, and I loved every single minute of it. And the fact that it is like able to maintain its core message throughout all of the nonsense that is happening, which is like, what exactly does it mean to lead a well-fulfilled life, which is not at all something that I was expecting from this movie going in. Like, again, this movie just has a clip of just two rocks sitting there doing nothing at all, and the fact that they like are able to conserve like the energy of the multiverse into like an everything bagel, you wouldn't think that would work, but it does. Just like the levels of understanding of genre and storytelling that the Daniels have with this movie, it really, really does stand the test of time. Absolutely. I think it will, at least. And yeah, I'm a huge fan of all the accolades that it's gotten. And the fact that Short Round is going to be an Oscar winner come this time next year, that I love that. And
he's
Michelle Yao,
in it.
Yeah, he is unbelievable. And Michelle Yao getting her just desserts finally.
She's great in that too.
I love the references that this makes to like the rest of her career. Like, there's a very clear homage to Crouch the Tiger, Hidden Dragon. That's the other thing too, is you can tell that this is a movie that is made by people who love movies, but it's not a movie like about Hollywood. Like again, not trying to take any shots at Babylon, but like I'm kind of getting sick and tired of Hollywood only rewarding movies that are about Hollywood. And the fact that this
fucking reward Babylon, so they're giving all the nominations to that. To yours.
That's true.
So.
Yeah. Like
I really liked Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's definitely a one of a kind movie. I can't take that away from it. It just got a little too silly for my taste. Personally, the things the Rakakuni, I don't even.
I loved it. I love the Rakakuni. That shit killed me. And like once I realized, because that was a joke that like it took me a little bit to realize, and once I realized what they were doing, I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This is hilarious. Like,
What
yeah,
even was that Harry Shub character? I hated Jamie Lee Curtis and Stephanie Hsu, especially Jamie Lee Curtis, and I didn't like the hot dog fingers. I'm sorry, but like
the hot dog figure that was a bit they probably could have got.
It was also way too long too. It was way too long. This movie, especially for the story that it was setting up, and like the problem that she was having with the Stephanie Hsu, her daughter character. Like it was pretty simple for it to go on that long, and the whole thing with the tax, it got so ridiculous. But it has a sweet core at its center, and it's definitely one of a kind. I enjoyed Swiss Army Man a little bit more personally. I feel like the tone was definitely way more balanced in that movie, from silly to heartwarming to heartbreaking. And I also enjoyed one of the other Dan's second film, the Death and Life, the Death of Dick Long, which was hilarious and totally one of a kind as well. Yeah. So these guys are definitely one of the best directing duos out there right now, and they're going to continue making one of a kind films, I believe. And yeah, I think that's all we need. I wish I adored this movie as much as you did, but I adored parts of it, and I absolutely loved Ke Quan short round in it.
Yes.
Great performance.
Cannot wait to see him win the Oscar. His speech is going to be one for the age. Like his Golden Globe speech was already incredible enough to begin with, but like his speech when he wins the Oscar, which he is going to win the Oscar, is going to be one for the age. I can't. Oh, and I also almost forgot James Hong, who was like almost 100, I think, still kicking ass with performances on a rocket wheelchair. I lost it. That was when I'm like, okay, this cool. Movie's awesome. That was great. Yeah, this movie is hilarious. Like I loved it. It's number one. It's the best of the year. Like I said, it getting the amount of hype that it has kind of set it down a little bit, but not for me. So that is it. Those are our top 10s of the year, people. Like I said, it's been a blast. We've had fun in January recapping the year that was 2022, but now we're moving on to newer pastures. Next week, we will be back. 2023, we're officially really kicking off the movie season. We reviewed Last of Us 2 weeks ago, and now next week we are doing M. Night Shyamalan's A Knock at the Cabin, which I am very much looking forward to. Dustin, thanks once again for coming on. Again, he'll be back with us in March to review Scream 6, which is actually aptly titled Scream 6. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'll actually have watched all the Scream sequels by that point, so I'll actually have more to talk about once you actually come on for that movie.
I'm going to have a lot to talk about. Twitter. You can follow me there. You can follow me on Letterboxd, Dustin Mason, and you can follow me on Mr. G Movie Reviews on YouTube.
Absolutely. Follow me at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talkin TV Podcast across all platforms. Be sure to subscribe to us if you're watching us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitch. This episode will be available tomorrow on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And as always, people, 12 seasons in a short film. I watch more fucking movies. We'll see you guys next time.